Welcome to Faith Break, finding God moments in your everyday. Each week on Faith Break, hosts Karen Luke and Ann Gallagher bring spiritual refreshment to your daily life. It's March 2nd. On today's episode, Karen and Ann welcome friend and colleague Don Smith, our Diocesan Coordinator of Sacramental Catechesis and Family Life. Don will share fresh ideas about practicing Lent in the real world today, with practical advice for your Lenten journey.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Faith Break. I'm Karen.
And I'm Ann.
And we have a very special guest with us today, Don Smith from the Diocese of Rochester. Hi, Don.
Hi.
And Ann and I always have our podcast, and we are friends, ministers, wives, and we are working to bring awareness of God moments in everyday lives. And today, we have our special guest, but we're going to be talking about Ash Wednesday.
Lent, we are only a few days away from Lent.
Only a few days away from Lent.
So it's time to get our game plan together and figure out how we're going to be intentional about having a great Lenten season.
Yep.
So we should tell everybody how we know Don, though, because I'm sitting here thinking it's kind of funny because before there was Karen and Ann as partners, first there was Karen and Don.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was Ann and Don.
Yeah.
So we should give them a little bit of the history for people who don't know.
So when I first got my first ministry job at St. Anne, Father Leone was like, you have to meet this guy, Don Smith. He's great. He'll be a great mentor. And so I went down the road and I met Don.
Because Father Leone had been my pastor growing up.
Yes. So there was a connection there. So as soon as we met, we hit it off and became friends and also ministers. And we ended up working together at St. Anne and Our Lady of Lourdes.
Mm-hmm.
And then
you moved from there to Transfig.
Yep. When we both left Brighton.
That's right. Yep.
And came to Pittsford and Mendon.
And I was working at another parish and then moved to work with Don at Transfig, where we worked together for,
7, 8 years.
A long time.
Yeah.
We were partners in crime.
And then Don moved to the diocese with Leslie Barkin, my counterpart.
I know. It's a very
It's weird.
Draw the connections between all of our ministry friends. It would just be like
very three-dimensional Venn diagram.
Yeah,
exactly.
The web of it all.
And now you got Ann and I, and Don is our guest.
Yep.
Yay.
And my husband was actually Don's best man.
Yes.
At his wedding.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so fun.
Yep. Okay, so Don is here to talk with us all about Lent. And Don is a wealth of information about church history and all the nerdy stuff about church. And so
I'm a theology geek.
Yeah. So we're actually, during this Lenten season, we're going to be doing a series on the Lenten disciplines. So in the coming weeks, we'll have an episode on the disciplines of prayer and fasting and almsgiving. But today we're just going to kind of take a bird's eye view of Lent, if that's cool with you. And we're just going to kind of see
where it takes
us, see what the basics of Lent have been. So Don, do you want to share anything about why do we have Lent?
Why do we do this
every year?
Because we have Easter.
That's fair.
Because Easter is important enough that we spend time getting ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Advent used to be 40 days as well because we spent so much time getting ready for Christmas, too. Huh. And over this time, that changed. But
it's so funny. We were just talking to Rob about this Advent, because he was saying he wished that Advent was 6 weeks the same way that Lent is, because he wanted more time to enjoy Advent. I was like, I've never thought of it that way.
When did that change? I mean,
I
obviously a long, long time ago.
I think it got standardized at 4 weeks.
Okay.
So it was like a local custom, and they used to call it St. Martin's Advent, because it went from the Feast of St. Martin to Christmas.
Huh.
But Lent is important enough that they give it 40 days. 40 in the Bible always means long time and completeness.
40 years in the desert for the Israelites.
40 days in
the desert for
40
Jesus.
years in the desert, 40 days in the desert. 40 days and nights for the flood.
Yep.
So it's the complete time to prepare.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so I always think of Advent as being more like kind of a cozy time. Like you
Mhm.
think about like getting your house ready for Christmas. You think about getting your heart ready for Jesus. But the spirit of Lent is kind of different, right? And Lent, I think of it more as like, kind of like spring cleaning of the heart, maybe kind of like opening up the windows and letting the fresh air in. And there's just a different kind of spiritual vibe to Lent. I mean, traditionally it's more penitential than Advent is,
Mhm.
but I think there's lots of ways that we can think about, what the spiritual meaning of Lent is for us in our lives.
Yeah, it's really hard, I think, for people to let go of things.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I recognize Lent as a time of like mercy,
Mm.
giving myself the mercy and grace to let things go
Mm-hmm.
and not hold on to it. But what are some of your thoughts on the purpose of your Lent,
Of my Lent, personally?
or like how you think of it?
I'm the coordinator of Sacramental Catechesis, so obviously I go sacraments. Because Easter is the baptism time, a lot of what we do really is preparing us for that life
Mm.
in baptism. So I struggled with Lent for a long time.
Mhm.
It was actually one Lent I remember when you did your 40 days or 40 bags.
40 bags in 40 days. I was going to talk about that today. Yeah, yes.
But that year, because
Yeah.
you challenged me to stop looking at Lent completely penitential and look at it as a spring cleaning.
Uh-huh.
And it made me, and that was the same time that somebody made a comment about it takes 27 days of work of a habit
Oh, to form a habit.
to become
Yeah.
a normal action. And that's why whatever we give up for Lent or we do for Lent or whatever practice we take on has the potential to last well past
Mhm.
Easter. I realized that it was time to stop looking at Lent as just for Easter, but for a life in Easter.
So less of like, I'm going to do this habit or give this thing up temporarily for these 40 days, and more like, I'm going to use this as a reset
Yeah.
to kind of, reboot and recalibrate and, put myself on a different path than maybe I've
One of
been
the
on.
parishioners one time at St. Thomas More used to always give up popcorn and beer
Oh, yeah.
for Lent.
I remember you talking about this.
Like, that was his thing. He gave up popcorn and beer. And every year when he would leave the Easter Vigil, he'd go, I'm going to go home and pop my popcorn and have my beer. Like, for him, it was a postponement. It
Right.
wasn't
Yeah.
a change.
Which doesn't mean it's bad.
No.
Like, that's not a bad.
It's a good discipline.
Right. But there could be more.
Yeah.
There could be more. What are some of the things you guys have done for Lent in years past that have been, do you want to do successful or unsuccessful first? What should we?
Let's start with successful,
Okay.
because I think everything else I have tried has been unsuccessful. But yeah, like going back to the notion of like, oh, I'm just going to give it up for 40 days. I did turning off the radio in the car on my way to and from work.
Mm-hmm.
And that was awesome. Like it was, I noticed my commute and I noticed the things around me. Do you ever get in your mind and all of a sudden you're like at your location, you're like,
How did I get
gosh,
here?
how did I get there? Yeah, I did not have any of that because there wasn't any other sort of distraction.
You were present.
I was present and focused.
Mhm.
So that was a good one. And Dot and I don't know, do you still play Candy Crush?
I don't.
Okay, I don't either.
Me neither. We've all quit Candy Crush.
So we've all quit Candy Crush, but that was actually Leslie suggested that I give up Candy Crush because it was such an addiction because two of my
Yeah,
other
that game is
coworkers
addictive.
played it. And so we were constantly like, oh, I just beat you. Oh, I just beat you. And it was like this whole competition thing. But I ended up deleting it after Easter and I didn't even start back up. And I don't even miss it. So
Yeah.
I think those were like my two like really successful.
Yeah. The year we did the 40 bags in 40 days challenge was, I think, one of our best Lents. For me, I think I generally do better with like adding prayer than with necessarily like giving things up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Depending on what the thing is, but like the 40 bags in 40 days, what that is like, it's what it sounds like. You take 40 bags of things out of your house in 40 days. So it doesn't have to be one bag a day, and it could be trash, it could be donations or, giveaway, whatever. But the idea is that it's like it felt very sacramental to me because it was a physical act and you could actually see like the results in our house. So the year that we did that, it was way back. We were in our old house, which was our tiny little house. Remember where we painted?
We painted the whole
Don
thing.
helped me paint my entire house, our first house when we moved in. And yeah, we had friends come and paint every room, and Don was there every day for a week. And but then we had the kids, and they had all the stuff that comes with the kids. And we knew we were going to be moving, like we're within the next year or two. We're kind of getting ready to make that change. And I was like, we gotta clean out, and it was like, it was really good. We all got into it. Even the little ones, could help with that. And I really like this. So I'm thinking maybe I said this last year and then didn't do it, but I think this is the year we go back and we do the 40 bags in 40 days again, because that must have been like 8 years ago or more, because we've been in our house like 8 years. And now the kids are teenagers and we still have tons of stuff that they've accumulated and we don't need anymore. But it just like, you feel so light when you get rid of things like that, you feel so light, and you can, I don't know, it was very gratifying to like see the results of the change in our physical space.
Yeah.
I remember one year I gave up being late.
I remember that.
And so
remember that.
I made a conscious effort to be at least on time, if not 5 minutes early, every day. And Meg Kastner looked at me and said, "But you're not late." And I went, "What are you talking about? I come in half an hour after the start of the workday every day."
Well, that was your start time.
Yeah.
You stayed later too. I mean,
did.
come on.
But I started getting in on time, and I was amazed that I felt less guilt at like, oh, I'm shortchanging, and and it became a habit. And other than today, when I was right in as we were,
you were right on time today.
I still tend to be fairly good at that. So
That's
that
cool.
one was a success.
One year, I feel like it was kind of early in our marriage. Brian challenged me. Do you remember this? The year he challenged me not to roll my eyes at him. He told me that it was a sign of disdain. It hurt his feelings when I rolled my eyes at him, which honestly, I didn't even realize I was doing all that much. But then when I tried to stop, I was like, oh boy, that's really hard.
So what was the penalty if he caught you rolling your eyes at him?
I don't think we even did that. It was something I worked on, and I did. I gave up rolling my eyes at him, and now I don't think I ever roll my eyes at him. But that was a hard one.
Well, and it's interesting when you give up things like that really make you look in and say, wow, I really do that. Like, didn't even realize.
Yeah. You know those memes where it's like your face says it all without you actually saying anything?
Using my outside voice? Yeah.
I have a feeling that would be very difficult for me.
Your mouth isn't moving, but your face is saying,
my face gives a whole story every single time. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to try that.
That was rough.
And with Brian giving you an idea for you to do, there's one of the priests that I follow on social media has a Jewish friend who gives him his thing to give up every Lent.
That's cool.
I've heard that.
And
that's cool.
He's like, it's from the Jewish tradition of trying to make myself better. So he's the one that, and when a friend tells me what I need to work on, it's more truthful than me going, oh, I don't want to be late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Or just giving up chocolate and then Easter Sunday drinking all the beer and popcorn or chocolate.
Popcorn and beer.
Right.
Yeah.
So have you had some that didn't go well? Some Lents that maybe you set yourself up for failure instead of success?
You know, we talked about the beginning of the year and New Year's resolutions.
Mhm.
I am not good.
Yeah.
Like it. So there have been plenty of times, and I can't pinpoint one, but I think I don't like the idea of giving up something, because it's like, yes, you're fasting from it. Yes, you're trying to like, but again, I think it has that like mental capacity of just like, oh, I'm just going to do it for the 40 days,
Right.
you know,
Mhm.
and it's not like, it's not a goal. It's
Yeah.
an end result type of thing.
And it can get real easy to get kind of like letter of the law rather than spirit of the law
Yeah.
about like Lenten, disciplines, and like maybe you set out on Ash Wednesday and you have like, I'm not going to have chocolate and I'm not going to have wine and I'm not going to have like, and you set up
Yeah.
all these things, and then, when you
yeah.
slip up or whatever, it's like, whatever, I'm done with Lent. But
It's like an all or nothing.
an all or nothing
Yeah.
thing. Or because, we've talked before about how like the Sundays in Lent,
Yeah, don't count.
We should
count.
probably say that, because I don't know if we've said it. Have we
Oh.
said it before?
we should do it again. Why
Yeah.
don't we? That's a good point.
Okay.
Let's go back and say what the official expectations for Lent
Yep.
are. Fasting on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday.
Mhm.
And then we're encouraged to, be in solidarity with Christ in some sort of Lenten sacrifice, would you
Mhm.
say? What am I missing?
Absence from meat on Ash Wednesday and Fridays.
Right.
Yeah.
So really the church doesn't give us a whole lot of rules, really. That's
Right.
That's pretty.
No, and it's 40 days,
Mhm.
but when you do the math between Ash Wednesday and Easter, you come up with like 47, I think. Oh, if you take out the Lord's Day every week on Sunday, you come up with 40.
Because every
So-
Sunday's a little Easter.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
is Sunday Lent? Or, I mean, the priest is wearing purple,
Right.
but it's not part of the number.
So a lot of people take that as their cheat day.
Yeah.
For whatever
Which,
they're
like,
giving up.
Totally disregard. I like personally, I try to maintain
Oh,
the
it
Sundays,
becomes harder.
because then otherwise it's like you're just looking forward to that cheat day and not Easter.
Mm-hmm.
I've told you guys about the Lent when I was in college, and there was a Starbucks on campus, and I would use you could use your meal plan to buy like Starbucks. So I would get Starbucks like a lot, but I gave it up for Lent, except that the Starbucks wasn't open on Sundays. So I decided in my head that Mondays were going to be my Sunday that Lent, and I could have the Starbucks on Monday. And this is the kind of mental gymnastics I'm talking about
Yeah.
that can kind of like trip people up
Right.
during Lent, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's just, that's not the point.
Well,
Like-
it also goes into like when we're talking about reconciliation,
Yeah.
and people are like, well, why do I have to talk to a priest about it? Why
Mhm.
can't I just talk to God? And that's exactly why.
Mhm.
Because you make these rules or assumptions and you're like, oh, that won't relate to me, or that really wasn't that bad. But when you face it with another person,
Mm-hmm.
then you're
Mhm.
you're held accountable.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, maybe Monday wasn't really my Sunday. You know?
But I mean, there is a sort of wisdom in that. Like, you don't want to get so, like, I don't know, puritanical is not the right word, but like so hung up on it that it becomes all about perfection and not about
Yeah.
a true
Growth.
sacrifice of the heart, right?
Yeah. And growth. Yeah.
That's real easy to do. Do you guys remember Lent 2020? I was trying to remember when I was preparing for today. Like, I mean, that whole time is sort of a blur, but I do remember having a whole bunch of like conversations on social media and over text and stuff about how like people started off with like their normal Lenten ideas or whatever. And then we got hit with the pandemic and everything shut down. And we're like, well, this is it. This Lent has just been given to
This
us.
is my Lent now. Yeah.
Right.
I gave up toilet paper. No, I'm joking.
Too much information.
No, I meant because there was
Yeah,
a toilet
I
paper
know,
shortage.
I know.
I didn't really. I'm like, okay, we can cut that out if we need to.
No, keep it in.
Just
So
trying to be funny.
Sometimes you make plans for Lent, and sometimes Lent
Yeah.
lands on your head and it gets given to you
Yeah.
for whatever
I think
reason.
a goal would be like one thing. Just like try to focus on one attainable. Like, you know, when we're talking about it, instead of giving up chocolate or giving up wine or whatever,
Mhm.
say, I'll have, if you're eat it all the time or you're drinking something like soda, if you drink soda all the time, cutting it out is going from Tuesday
Yeah,
to
cold
Wednesday.
turkey is hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so say I'm only going to have one a day.
Mhm.
And then that way, not only is it maintainable, but you're also growing and it's not
Well,
like
it
an
is
all
still
or
a
nothing.
sacrifice.
And it's still a
Sacrifice doesn't mean
sacrifice,
cut it out completely.
Right.
Sacrifice means sacrifice it, like cut back, make
Right.
it a little harder than just, it's not a big deal for me to leave out a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to leave out 2 or 5.
You
Donna
do not
likes
want
coffee.
this podcast with
Uncaffeinated.
me uncaffeinated. I don't understand the concept of decaf coffee, so.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a matter of intentionality.
Right.
Like the worst Lents that I've had were ones that snuck up on me. I was really busy right up until Ash Wednesday, and then I had to come up with something to give up. Well,
Right.
it's not something that's going to help me at that point. It's
No.
something I'm doing to check it off the list.
And the whole idea of fasting is only one of the 3 Lenten disciplines, right?
Mhm.
It's even now that's all we've been talking about this whole time, but really it's only one of 3. Prayer and almsgiving are just as important.
Right.
But we always focus on,
Mhm.
we almost can treat it almost like Catholic diet season, It's like that's not what the point is. I don't know.
So, Don, we're in the Jubilee year.
Mhm.
How does the theme of the Jubilee relate to Lent and Easter and all that? You want to?
But Jubilee is all about renewal and refreshing. And if there's 2 words that work for Lent, it would be renewal and refreshing. So the idea that we spend time to get back to our roots and who we were made to be is a very Lenten theme, but it is the whole idea of Jubilee too.
Yeah. We're excited because our theme this year for St. Catherine's and Transfiguration is the Jubilee
Pilgrims of Hope.
Pilgrims of Hope.
Oh, nice.
So we made, we wanted to make sure that tied in. But for those that don't necessarily understand what a Jubilee year
Mhm.
is, could you give us a little more info on why the Pope decided that
Sure.
this was a year, or how that all...
There's 2 different types of Jubilees, ordinary and extraordinary. The ordinary Jubilees are every 25 years.
Okay.
So the last one was in 2000, and now it's time. And so it's just an ordinary
2000
time
was
apart.
only last year, though.
I know, right? This
We
is the
weren't even
problem.
in ministry yet.
I started in ministry in
Did you?
2020.
2020 or 2000?
Yeah, that's the year.
2000.
See? Those 20 years just disappeared.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt, but
So it's an ordinary Jubilee. So it wasn't called with a specific purpose other than it's time.
okay.
So it really is like a Sabbath or a Lent or whatever our normal time is to get ready for and to renew.
Okay.
So in that way, it's ordinary. But in every other way, it's meant to be set aside as different than the normal year.
Okay.
The other type of Jubilee is the extraordinary Jubilee, which Pope Francis called in 2015 for mercy.
Yeah, I remember that.
Because he saw a need in our world and wanted to dedicate a year with all of the trappings and things that go with a Jubilee for that purpose.
And the Jubilee is about, it is kind of like Lent because it goes back to that passage from Luke 4, right? Does this one also go back to when Jesus came and declared his mission?
Right.
Those are I remember 25 years ago that being like one of the
It's
scriptures
one of the big
we
ones.
looked at.
Yep. It actually goes all the way back to, I think it's Isaiah, one of the prophets,
Okay.
about taking time and laying your fields fallow. And there were laws prescribed in the Jewish tradition.
Forgiving of debt was a big thing
Yep.
too, right?
Freeing the slaves, all of those things that, yeah, they're legal. Are they what we should be doing?
Right.
This is a great time
Mm-hmm.
to have this Jubilee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you want to share anything about some of the things the Pope or even our diocese is planning to help celebrate the Jubilee year?
Well, one of the big hallmarks of Jubilees are pilgrimage. The idea that we take a journey that reflects our inner journey towards God. And traditionally, that was you go to Rome and you visit the 7 churches that were set aside in Rome for this purpose, for the 4 major basilicas and then 3 other churches. And you walk through the holy doors and you go to Mass, you get reconciliation, you pray for the Pope, and you get a special indulgence. Great. Pope Francis realized in 2015 that the vast majority of the world can't get to Rome.
Sure.
Nor do they really
Unfortunately.
want everybody in the world descending on one city in 1 year. And so he said a jubilee is not meant to be for the wealthy. It's meant to be for everyone. And so he said that every cathedral, and he's continued it this year, it can be a pilgrimage site. So we can get all of the jubilee experience that you would get from going to Rome by going to our own cathedral.
Okay.
He expanded it this year and said a diocese could set up other shrines or holy sites and automatically included any minor basilicas. Now, the Diocese of Rochester doesn't have any shrines that really fit it. But if you go to Buffalo or Syracuse on either side of us, there are multiple sites, but there are multiple basilicas.
Oh.
So right in Syracuse, in Buffalo, down in Olean.
Just saying.
And then I think there are a couple shrines too. I know Albany has some. If you go to the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, that's been set aside as one.
Okay, cool.
But the thing I like about pilgrimage is that even if you can't go to the cathedral or make a long trip, pilgrimage is really meant to be something that isn't supposed to be big and overly. So you can do a Stations of the Cross. It's a movement that reflects an inner movement.
Oh, I see.
You could you could pray a labyrinth. It's a movement that reflects an inner movement. There's a lot of physical prayer that we do that could match it.
Cool. I like the labyrinth idea.
I know. We have a
something.
labyrinth.
Yeah. We should dust that thing off this year sometime. And
Dust the
The tarp.
the tarp.
Good.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. Well, what are you guys? I know maybe you haven't made all your decisions about Lent this year, but do you guys have anything you're thinking about committing to for this Lenten season coming up?
Well, I think I'm inspired by Brian. I'm going to ask Kristen to
Oh.
pick for me.
You're going to ask Kristen to pick for you.
Yep.
Okay. That's
Oh.
different than telling her to stop rolling
yeah,
her
I was
eyes
gonna
at you.
say.
No, I'm gonna ask Kristen to pick something for me to
Nice.
take on.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I really want to get into the rice bowl this year with the family. And in addition to that, they have the Friday meatless meal recipes.
Yeah, those are cool.
So I really want to focus on actually purchasing those ingredients, reading the stories with the family. Fortunately, my family, we eat at the dinner table almost every night. So that will be a nice addition. Having that conversation based around the meal that we're eating and doing that, I think is really, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm going to do the 40 bags thing like I shared before, but I'm also thinking, I'm not on social media a ton, but I think I might just do a social media like complete fast for Lent this year. Because I just don't think it's adding anything to my life right now. And it's actually a source of stress in my life right now. And
does that mean Don and I can't send you memes?
Oh, you guys can
via
send me
text?
memes.
Okay.
That's not the same thing as social media.
That's where I get all of them.
Yeah. Then you'll just send me the good ones that I need to see. It's fine. I don't know if I just think Facebook's become just total garbage. And
and it's become a time sink. And so the time that I spend on Facebook, I could be spending bettering my relationship with God.
Well, and it used
that's a worthy Lenten thing.
Actually, even like the news, my news consumption, I wouldn't not read the news or listen to the news, but I think limiting it to like once a day or something might be a healthy thing for me to fast from this Lent.
Yeah. Do you want to get into, we have 3 scripture passages. Did you want to get into those or?
Sure.
Are we good?
Well, so we were these are they're from the Ash Wednesday readings, which are the same every year. So, but we have Joel 2. Well, this isn't the whole thing, but the quote, one of the quotes from the first reading on Ash Wednesday talks about rending your heart, not your garments. So, having your Lent be whatever it is, be about what's happening internally to give us internal freedom, right? Not just things we can brag about or tell all our friends we're doing for Lent and seem like, spiritual muscle builders or something like that. I don't know.
In Matthew, it's Matthew chapter 6, it says, your Father who sees what is hidden will repay you. And it was interesting because Ann and I had done search retreat, and I was a small group leader, which I was so excited to be. But one of the things we had talked about in our group was like when we talk to God about our day, sometimes we don't talk about the shameful things. And one of the participants was like, which I don't understand why I like gloss over that, because God knows who I am anyway. God saw it. And I was like, wow, that is so true. So, God will repay us whatever, and will always love us. And I just love that he sees you and what is hidden, even if we don't know it yet too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's value in making commitments, Lenten commitments, and pursuing the Lenten disciplines, because they can be, they're embodied expressions of our faith.
Right.
But it's all about what God is seeing internally. And so, I think it's okay for this Lent to be a quieter Lent too, if that's where you're feeling called, or if you just need to make some space for silence in your life. That is a very worthwhile thing to be thinking about in our very noisy world. And so I would just encourage everybody to really, when you're thinking about what you want your Lent to be like, not to go overboard and think you have to do it all, but to pick one thing, whether it's adding something or, letting go of something that you think is going to touch your heart. That's going to really make that internal opening space for God to come in and move.
Yep.
So you know what we didn't do today?
Oh my gosh.
We didn't do our God moments.
We didn't do our God moment.
We do our God moment.
Yeah,
Don's our
I've
best
watched.
listener. Don's our best listener, so he knows what's going on. What's your God moment this week, Don?
This past week?
Or whenever.
Or whatever.
Whenever.
I got to spend hour and a half each way with a close friend driving to another friend's house yesterday. And we do it monthly, every couple months. But I realized just how much we haven't done it since like October. And I realized how much I've missed just sitting in the car driving with Mike. And we talk other times, but there's something about physically being present. And it was just...
That's cool.
It was really good.
Yeah. Well, we might have the same one because we both have just come off of the search retreat. So I got to spend the weekend with a bunch of our teenagers from church, and to get away and just to watch them. I don't take a small group because it's important for somebody to be like kind of the lifeguard in case anything comes up. So I always kind of, when their kids are in their small groups, kind of hover around, but I can like listen to some of the conversations that are happening, and man, the Holy Spirit was moving, and I could just hear from the things the teens were sharing that God was busy, and I love seeing teens' faith come to life for that, because I just it's going to be bearing fruit for years to come.
Yeah.
So
mine is also from search, but it was one particular moment. Father Rob came.
It was so great.
Said
with
mass for us on Friday night. And it was, so out of all the teens, only 2, I believe, had gone to search before.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So there were a lot of new kids and a lot of younger aged kids. But Father Rob invited us up around the altar with him. And it was just looking around and how intent everyone was on the words they were saying, receiving of communion, it wasn't like a monotonous stand up, sit down, stand up, say this, do this. It was just, we were all just so present.
They really dialed in
to the moment.
And a lot of them at the end of the retreat, when we asked them to share what their grace was, said that Mass was their grace.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah. And a lot of them were like, we've never celebrated Mass without a lot of people. So,
Right.
and I go to daily Mass, so a small crowd is,
Yeah.
I like the intimate, but just watching, you're right, just watching them and hearing the wiseness of high schoolers.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Like that was, I'm like, dude, how old are you?
and how they can be there for each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was
It's
really
a witness
sweet.
to all of us.
Yeah.
For real.
Very much.
Yeah.
So,
Well, Don, do you want anything else you want to talk about before we end?
Your comment about the coming up around the altar and just being present to what they were saying reminds me of a challenge that I was given one Lent, which was to stop looking down during the Our Father
oh,
and to look around at the people that we pray with,
Cool.
because it's the beginning of the communal act of communion, where it's meant to be community. So who are you praying these words with? And it changed how I approached coming up for communion, because suddenly
Wow.
it wasn't me and Jesus, it was the community. So that might be
That's
it's
a
an
cool-
easy one,
Right.
but it's a powerful one.
Nice. I like
Yeah.
that. Any other suggestions for Lent?
Well,
in general,
I'm just thinking of the Our Father or any prayer that we say at Mass. I noticed, and it's not bad, but I noticed Anne has a different cadence of her prayers during Mass than I do. And it's really interesting because do you say it as fast or as slow as the priest, or are you praying it your way? And I love it because I'm always like, what? I hear the words that you're emphasizing
I'm a fast talker.
differently. But it is. It's like just the awareness that there are others with you. And I challenge everybody. We talk about this quite a bit, but I challenge you to, after communion, not to get into your own zone, but to watch other people receiving.
It's powerful.
It is so powerful.
Each of them is becoming a tabernacle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is like one of my favorite
Yep.
moments.
Okay. Well, we'll have a lot more tips about prayer and fasting and almsgiving in coming weeks, but we want to say thanks, Don, for coming on.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was
You
fun.
come back anytime. I know. I feel like so the joke is that Karen and I are extroverts and Don is our introvert friend. So I'm like doing a podcast with Don. I'm almost feeling like maybe we should just sit here for a few minutes and then see if you come up with anything else you want to say. Remember that shirt you had that was like a battery?
Oh, yeah.
It said introverting.
And it was empty. Yeah. Empty
You
battery.
just need
Yeah.
some time to
You're going to really enjoy your ride back to the diocese.
I might take a page out of your book and just turn off the radio.
There you go. There you go.
Anyway,
Well,
thanks
thank
for being
you.
here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. We hope you have a good Ash Wednesday. Hey, come to the soup supper
Yes.
on Wednesday.
Yes.
It's so fun. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for taking a faith break with us today. Karen Luke and Ann Gallagher are lay ministers with the parishes of St. Catherine of Siena in Mendon, New York, and Church of the Transfiguration in Pittsford, New York. More about our parishes, including weekly live-streamed Sunday Mass, can be found at stcath.org or transfigurationpittsford.org. Thank you to our special guest today, Don Smith. Engineering today is by Jeff Beckett. Join us for new episodes of Faith Break each week in studio on YouTube or on your favorite audio podcast or music app.